Welcome along to the Make It Count podcast. My name is David,
My name's Matt.
and we are the Taylor Bros.
Yes, we are.
And just Matt needs to reaffirm that,
I do.
remembering coming out of his second identity. We won't talk about that anymore, though. It's a book or a series of books we both read. Robin Hobb, fictional books, and I really like her work. I think I put her on to you.
Yeah,
And
you gave me a recommendation.
And the series we've pulled a quote out of a series of books, the Live Ship trilogy,
Yes.
each about 900 pages long. So
Crazy
they're not,
long.
there's a lot of pages you're reading there, probably 2 or 3 times the length of a normal book. And we really liked it, and it resonated a little bit with what we've talked about in this podcast before. So, Matt, do you want to read the quote?
I would love to
Or
read the
get
quote.
the quote ready for us so we can riff
The
off
title
that
of the
a little
book
bit.
is The Mad Ship. So
There you go. That's the second one, isn't it?
halfway through the book, one of the characters says this: "Tomorrow owes you the sum of your yesterdays. No more than that, and no less. Sometimes folk wish tomorrow did not pay them off so completely."
Yeah, and it's that idea that we kind of get what we deserve.
In a sense, and immediately that might come up with objections in your mind of, well, what about this that happened to me, and what about that happened to me? And of course, some the episode we've done recently about kind of looking forwards to how do I want to, live in light of the fact that I'm going to die. I think this is almost a looking back and recognizing a lot of how our life ends up turning out is in reaction to, or is the sum total of the decisions that we have made as well.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst, of course, other people play a massive part in our life, at least of all our family or those who were caring for us or not caring for us when we were growing up, again, there have been people that have started with far worse situations than many of us and have gone on to live incredibly extraordinary lives. And there are people that are born into incredible privilege and make nothing of their lives, and destruction follows them everywhere. And so the starting out and the things that are done to a person aren't actually necessarily the be-all and end-all of how does a life turn out.
Oh, 100%. And so that idea that today or tomorrow is the sum of our yesterdays is quite a powerful thought. Sometimes it might feel a bit convicting because we look around, we go, hey, this isn't how I'd want it to be, or that isn't the way it should be even. And other things play a part, there are things that chance leads to. But I sort of was thinking about this in different domains. So, there's the physical aspect of it. There's the financial aspect of it. There's even the mental, potentially emotional aspects of that. And that things that we've done every day of our yesterdays, all of our yesterdays, do affect where we've come to today. What do you think as I throw that at you?
Yes, obviously it's always helpful to think more granularly on those different domains, because if you just think nebulously about a life, although we are holistic and our life is, you can't really, analyze a life by taking it bit by bit. It's kind of like killing the butterfly to find out how it works. But it can help to go, health-wise or financially or relationally, where am I at now and how have I arrived there? I think for me, another book I'm reading actually in the same author, a trilogy later on in that same world, a character just yesterday was deciding on whether she can kind of forgive someone and move on, or hold on to the bitterness and hurt of what the person has done to them, and wrestling with that. And you kind of see these two paths splitting off ahead. If she continues to hold on to that hurt, what will that do to that relationship? And it doesn't or whether she forgives. It does not change what that person did, how they behaved, but it could change the future. It could change her tomorrows because of how she decides to then respond and what she decides to do with it. And I think, again, that's the reality of the situation. Yes, I can always point to what they did or didn't do, what they have done or haven't done for me, what the things but if I choose, actually, I'm going to take a ownership mindset as to what I can control, what I do have influence over, I think that just puts us on a much firmer footing of, I'm going to be making decisions towards making it count. And I will be in a better place to not be a reactive victim to all that happens to me.
Yeah, and I suppose there's two aspects to looking at this. There's the one of like, well, where am I now? What does that tell me about how I've lived my yesterdays, and reflecting back on that? Like, hey, yeah, no, with the physical thing, well, I'm here at because, I did an exercise or I did eat well, and so that's one aspect. Or where am I here financially? Well, actually, yeah, there was an emergency or a thing that I needed that funding for, but actually, did I put enough aside for that? Because actually, we talked about the YNAB way of like budgeting. That prepares you for those larger unforeseen costs. And so how we lived yesterday, that can help us understand how we are today. But like you've just said, that there's often, we're in a moment where we can see the paths of the future laying out in front of us. And I wonder if sometimes, hey, what's my ideal life? What's my dream life look like? Maybe it's, what's the book we've
Designing Your Life.
Designing Your Life. And it's sort of imagining what that ideal life looks like, and then thinking, well, what would I live each day like to get to there? And there's some aspects of that, so that it allows you to go, well, yeah, we get the sort of the sum of our yesterdays, but we can create those tomorrows to work for our future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it pairs really nicely with, we've spoken about this book before, we've talked about the podcast series that they did. I don't know if we've reviewed it yet, so it might be one to come to in the future, but Drew Dick's book, Your Future Self Will Thank You. And I love the fact that it pairs really nicely with this idea of now, your yesterdays, the sum of your yesterdays is effectively what tomorrow will give you. And I like the ending to that. Sometimes folk wish that tomorrow didn't pay them off quite so completely. We can wish basically I hadn't got the consequences to the actions and the ways I'd lived. People come to the end of their life and they go, wow, like the biggest regrets are often the things that we didn't invest in with relationships. I wish that I had, and I had more richness in maybe relationships than in money or material gains. But again, it's not a case of just, well, it is what it is and there's nothing I can do about it at the end of the day. It's, well, no, you've got opportunity to take stock now. And I think one of the things that's struck with me again when we think about these big life, making things count or moving in this direction or moving towards the life that you want, it always helps to remember, well, you've got to start where you are. And this quote is potentially a route in to taking a bit of an audit in maybe different areas of life. Recently I just came across an old note that I had started a couple of years ago and never really followed through with. It was a joy audit, and it was just kind of take stock on your joy levels. Like, how many times did you laugh this week? How many times did you smile and share a joke with someone? And again, that's an opportunity to take stock and then to make a decision. Am I all right with that? Is that a good level? Okay, that's great, wonderful. If not, what changes do I want to make? Such that in the future, I'll be able to look back and go, yeah, wow, I've invested in joy. I'm now in a much more joyful place in my relationships, in my work, in whatever. Yeah,
definitely. And again, that sort of ties in with the James Clear stuff, isn't it? What you do every day helps. It compounds and you become that sort of person.
Yes.
And so that's why I touched very early on with that idea of mental, or like that mentality that, hey, what the thoughts we think every day affect how we're going to think tomorrow, in all likelihood, because we've repeated those thoughts over and over again. And those are really difficult to catch sometimes and to see, but certain patterns of thinking are not going to be helpful for us, and certain patterns of thinking can be. And there's an element that they have to match up with the reality of our life, but there's also an element of like, how can we have that growth mindset, for want of a better word?
Hugely. We always come back to habit, and just habit is such a powerful thing. But exactly what you were saying, James Clear lays out really nicely in his book, I think better than I've heard other people explain it, is one of the deepest powers of habit is not just the compounding effect that it does, but it's the way that it changes our beliefs about self, about the things that we do and the activities we engage in. And but it isn't just specifically as simple as like, oh, I'm an exerciser. Because or I'm a journaler. I've noticed, like, if I try to journal at a time or a place that I don't normally do it in, it feels jarring and strange. Or there are certain podcasts that I have tied to certain other exercises that I do or times in the day, and if I try and do it at another time, it feels odd, it feels different, and so I'm less likely to do that. And so again, we come back to, yes, your tomorrow owes you the sum of your yesterdays, no more and no less, and a huge part of that is, and it owes you or it pays you the picture of yourself and of the world that has built around you. And that then is a huge aspect of how I'm going to interact with the world and those around me today and tomorrow, is what I believe about the world. And so these small changes in habits that we're talking about, yes, they might seem ludicrous when you think about what James Clear talks about, the 2-minute rule. When you're starting a new thing, it should mean no more than 2 minutes. But it's the first pebble of the avalanche of a change of beliefs, which will then enable me to show up in a different way.
100%. And I think that was really nice way of bringing a few ideas together from today's episode and a larger sort of broad branch of how we're thinking about these things. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode today as we've touched on these things and thinking about the sum of your yesterdays and the hope for the futures. So that's all from us today at the Make It Count podcast.